basically.
It looks like
Christmas, a lovely Christmas afternoon.
Yeah, it does.
It does not look like a blizzard. All right then. Just a bit. Can I have the rope up in position? Can I have you two guys standing in your second positions? Let's just zoom in tighter. It's the only thing I can think of.
Try maybe angling.
My name is Jonathan Bentley.
And what was your role in Cold Heaven, the film?
I was the co-producer, director and production designer. Yeah, in a nutshell, Cold Heaven is about a group of scientists exploring an Antarctic lake beneath the surface of the Antarctic. And the idea is that in this lake, the conditions are supposed to be identical to conditions on Europa, and so it's supposed that there might be life or new forms of life in this lake. And when they open up this lake, the strange things start to happen on the base, and many of the crew start to go nuts and hallucinate, and basically their worst fears come true. And it turns out that something in the lake is sort of psycho affecting the crew at the base. Well, we interviewed a lot of people for the roles, and really you choose people for a number of reasons when you're casting.
I guess I missed that one.
Sometimes it's first impressions, sometimes it's the way they look, sometimes it's the way they speak. But really, I think overall you choose a person because they most fit the original vision that you had for the character, and the vision I had for the characters in Cold Heaven was quite specific. Claire fitted into it perfectly. She had the right spirit and the right attitude, and she also had the right look. And Everall was just absolutely spot on. You know, he just had a very powerful screen presence that I could feel just from our initial meeting.
Did you have any conflicts with the actors at all?
I know production department had a great deal of conflicts to do with contracts and legalities and stuff that I deliberately didn't get involved in. But I think pretty much it went very smoothly. There was a couple of occasions where I came close to losing my temper, but usually that's just because I'm not getting my own way. It doesn't happen that often. No, I think really the relationship with the actors was actually quite good.
Did the actors have anything to contribute in the way of the script, perhaps changing it in a particular way?
Yeah, what I try and do with all the productions that I work on when I'm directing is allow the actors to bring as much of themselves into the production as they possibly can, and as much of their own experience, because it makes it for a much fuller, richer, and more believable performance. And if you allow an actor to use their imagination, because actors are just like any other creative person, they've got imagination, they've got ability to create. If you allow them to do that, you make for a much richer, more exciting piece of work. So what we did was allow the actors to develop scenes and take elements from one scene and work on it as a team and with me or individually, so that they could ad-lib a lot and they could bring a lot of their own particular style. And really the role of a director is not to dictate it shall be done like this, it's to guide people's abilities and to guide the performance so that they all fit within the same style and vibe of the film. Sorry, repeat the question?
Did you have to compromise on filming aspects because of time and money restraints?
Completely. I mean, from day one I had to compromise on the production side of things, because we didn't have half the locations that we needed, we didn't have any money, there were problems with actors' availability, there was problems with equipment that we needed, there was problems with crew dropping like flies, we had problems within certain creative departments where people just frankly weren't up to the job and weren't able to carry out their duties properly. and with no money, you're not able to replace those people. So you just have to keep going, and it became a real nuts and bolts production where we're just kind of holding it together, and it was incredibly difficult. But really, you have to make the best of the situation and compromise and work with the problems to make them, to make something good out of those, to make something interesting. And you just have to really apply your imagination a lot when you're sort of faced with really mundane production problems like we don't have a set for this scene. How do you improvise? How do you make that work?
As I understand it, I had a few conflicts with Dan, the assistant director.
a few conflicts with assistant director is a slight understatement. From day one, he decided to go to war with me and question my every move in front of the crew, which was quite amusing. The role of the assistant director is not a difficult one to decipher, really. It's to assist the director. It's to make the director's job easier, smoother, more manageable, and it's to bridge the gap between the production department and the studio, the front end actors and the director and the crew. And what Dan decided to do was to question not only my decisions but the decisions of a lot of the key members of the team, quite verbally and in front of other people. And all it did in the end was to undermine people's confidence in the production. So it was a constant battle to claw that back and to prove to the crew that this production was going to work and that we were going to get it finished. Because his constant gripe was, we're not going to get this film finished, it's not going to be done in time, we're not going to, it's going to not end successfully. And so it was constantly I was having to say, we are going to finish, it's going to be fine, everybody just calm down. And his job should have been to say, John's right, listen to him, we're all going to be okay, we'll get it finished. Because there's a lot of paranoia and a lot of worry when you make a film, particularly when you're making a low budget film. So the last thing you need is somebody panicking on set, saying, we're all going to die, the sky is falling, which is essentially what the first assistant director did in this case. And it didn't help matters, and he made it very difficult for a lot of people. I know he upset a lot of people with no real need.
Did you have any compromising ideas of what type of shots should be used with the director of photography and the cinematographer?
That happens all the time, though. There are always conflicts creatively. When you put a number of people in the same room and they've all got a creative input into it, there will always be conflicts. I'm very glad, though, that I've managed to work with Phil, who is the DOP, the cinematographer. He's extremely talented and he's very good to work with. And we did have, it was, for the first couple of weeks, quite a difficult, awkward process, as we'd never worked together and we had no prep time because our original cinematographer dropped out the week before the shoot started. And that's the person I'd spent all the pre-prep time with in terms of deciding what creatively how it was going to look and how the film was going to be. So when Phil came on board and saved the day, it was fantastic, but we didn't have any prep time and we didn't have any time to discuss ideas together, so a lot of that had to be done on the ground. We had to do it as we were going, and we had to work out, what is the look of this film. And it took us 2 weeks before we'd really totally got hand in hand on working on that. So to begin with, there were cases where I would say, no, it needs to be darker, and he would say, well, this looks a bit crap, and so on and so forth. And ultimately, we found a way of working together, and we work extremely well together. We've done shoots together since Cold Heaven, and we enjoy a very good working relationship.
Well, to understand it, generally a film crew is paid deferred when the film actually makes money.
Right, that's right.
When it's published. So did you feel you were under pressure because of that fact?
Under pressure from what?
The film being a success.
Well, no, not really, because you're under pressure to make because you're the director. Well, no, not really, because you're under pressure to make because you're the director. You're under pressure to make the film good, because ultimately it's your responsibility. If it's a good film, everybody will accept responsibility for it being a good film. If it's a bad film, they will make sure that the director accepts responsibility for it being a bad film. And so you've always got that pressure from day one. The fact that people are expecting to get paid from this has not been an extra worry, because I've always believed in it as a commercial project, and we've not promised people fast, wages here. The amount of money that we've been promising, that we have promised, we can make from 2 sales of the video, 2 sales of the production, and that's not the concern. The concern has always been, am I making the best film that we can with the available resources that we have? I think we have.
On the financing side of the film, was it difficult to get funding?
It was almost impossible to get funding. Gary did a very good job of getting hold of cash to oil the cogs. In terms of pre-production, there was about, in virtual money, there's probably about £500,000 spent, but the actual money for the production on a day-to-day basis was sorted out by approaching small companies, and it's very difficult. It's very difficult to convince people to give you money to make a film, because it's kind of pie in the sky to a lot of them, and it's, in this country, it just doesn't happen. In America, it's a lot easier to get finance because people accept film as a way of making money, as it's a viable financial option. But in this country, it's kind of seen as a bit of a weirdo's pursuit.
How do you feel about directing films?
What do you mean?
Why do you do it?
Why do I do it? I've always been I've always been drawn to storytelling. I've always been drawn to sort of creating a self-contained reality. I've always, I'm fascinated, particularly in science fiction and fantasy, because you're not just representing a easily graspable, recognisable world. You're actually creating something that's completely new, and you're creating a world that you're bringing complete fantasy to life, and you can illustrate stories in a really exciting visual way. And really, I think the main reason that I've always made films is really just to tell really good stories, cracking good stories. I always wanted to be either a comic book illustrator or a writer or a filmmaker, and I ended up making films.
Would you do a sequel?
Not on a low budget, no. I would like to. I think it would warrant a sequel, but what I would rather do is remake it with a budget. Do a lot of the stuff that I wanted to do but couldn't, and do it properly. Because there's a lot of scenes in this that are really kind of cut down 5% of what they should have been, because we didn't have the money. Well, before late, and not in the next 5 minutes.
Right. Unknown.
Well, no, we have a release. We have a release date, but it's the kiss of death to put a release date on.
Do this
to announce a release date, because if we had the money, we'd have it finished by Christmas and out in the shops. But we don't. So everybody, the editor, the post-production sound, the post-production effects people, the dubbing people, the Foley artists, all of these people are on deferral basis. So that means they do it whenever they've got the chance to. So it's a very long, slow process. The post-production is actually more difficult, and this is what a lot of people don't realise. The post-production is a lot more time-consuming and a lot more difficult than actually shooting the bloody thing. A lot more difficult.
Have you had any interest from abroad?
Yes, we have. There's a couple of companies that have shown an interest in putting in money to post-produce it towards finishing it. And it's all dependent on the first rough cut. So based on the first rough cut, if it's good enough, people there are companies out there that will consider putting money into doing the special effects properly, and getting a proper edit and a proper sound edit. The most important thing, I think, is getting the sound post-production spot on.
I've heard you've had the interest of the Sci-Fi Channel.
Yeah, they're interested in seeing it. They've not, with nothing promised from the Sci-Fi Channel, but we've got very good contacts with them, and we see them on a regular basis, and they've been very impressed by what we've done in the past. So, you know, I think we've got a really good shot at getting it on cable television distributed through them. But we'll see. I don't know. It might be an absolute turkey. You just never know.
Have you had any interest from Paramount Pictures at all? Any of the big companies?
No, not the big ones. It's from some of the smaller companies, like Alibi. We've had interest, and they wanted to meet us. We're taking a trailer to Cannes this year, and hopefully a polished single scene from the film. So we'll see what happens from that.
What can you see Paramount Productions doing next?
There's two projects really that I want to do next. There's a TV series called Tales of the Legion. I want to do the pilot episode of that, and also there's another movie. There's there's two projects I want to do. There's Tales of the Legion. There's a TV series. I want to do the pilot episode, and there's also another movie called The Dark Order, which is a sci-fi action thriller revolving around a fabled relic, the Spirit of Destiny, supposedly Adolf Hitler, and before him Charlemagne and others. So kind of a mythical fantasy action movie.
How much do directors get paid by?
It varies. Some directors will be on a 7-year what they call a picture deal, or a 5-year picture deal, depending, and they will get a set fee for those years. So say for example somebody said, oh, we've got a 5-year picture deal for you, and it's $10 million for those 5 years, so you get $2 million a year for 5 years, or you might get paid per picture, and it could vary from anything from 5% of the budget
can I have
up
you
to
in your
15%
standing
of the
positions?
budget.
Let's
So
zoom in
for a
tight
$100
on
million
both.
feature, $5 million, $10 million.
Action! Okay. It's stuck. It's stuck. What's going on out there? Oh, okay, we got to cut everybody.